A few weeks ago, I stumbled on a single statistic that completely broke my brain. It sounded so entirely fake that I spent few days digging through industrial records just to prove it wrong. But it's completely real. Between the years 2011 and 2013, in just 36 months, China poured more concrete than the United States did during the entire 20th century. Think about the scale of that. Every highway, skyscraper, dam, and suburban patio built in America from the year 1900 to 2000, China matched and surpassed it in the time it takes to get a college associate's degree. Today, China builds more ships, refines more steel, and manufactures more electric cars than the rest of the entire planet combined. And that is exactly why this topic is so interesting. Because a growth rate that violent shouldn't be physically possible.
But it happened, and it didn't happen under a free market democracy. It happened under a system that doesn't hold elections, doesn't allow a free press, no voting rights to its citizens, and operates under a single communist flag. For 100 years, the Western world told us that freedom was the only engine that could build a superpower. China didn't just challenge that rule, they completely shattered it. If you look at a satellite map of places like the Ordos New Town in northern China, you'll see something that looks like a glitch in reality. Towering luxury apartments, massive sports stadiums, world-class museums, all sitting in the middle of a desert, completely empty. Western economists looked at these ghost cities 15 years ago and laughed because there were homes but no people to live in. Compared to that, West was playing a completely different game. In a democracy, if a developer builds a giant city that sits empty for 5 years, they go completely bankrupt and the project gets abandoned. So Western systems can only build when there is an immediate demand. China, however, operates like a God mode simulation. The state didn't care that the city was empty today. They commanded the city to exist, forced state-owned companies to move their headquarters there, built a high-speed rail line to connect it to Beijing, and made it a booming tech hub 10 years later. They are effectively building the future on credit, using total state authority to force reality to catch up to their blueprints. They aren't competing with the US of today. They are building the physical landscape of 2050 right now. But there is a catch. In a system that can build a massive hospital next to your house in 10 days, can also send a bulldozer to destroy your home in 8 hours. And there is no courtroom, no lawyer, and no law on the books where you can fight back. We have to look at what this machine runs on. It doesn't run on magic. It runs on human flesh. Inside the Chinese tech and manufacturing sectors, there is a famous, terrifying phrase that every single young worker knows. It's called 996. It means you start work at 9 a.m., you leave work at 9 p.m., and you do it 6 days a week. If a company in Europe or America tried to force its employees into a 72-hour work week without overtime protections, they would be hit with massive union strikes, labor lawsuits, and public boycotts overnight. So Western companies have to respect human boundaries. But in China, independent labor unions are effectively illegal. If you try to protest the workload, the state security apparatus views you as a threat to national productivity. Because of this, government can harness the raw, uninterrupted labor of 1.4 billion people, like a giant national battery. They replace the old Soviet Union as the world's main rival, not by threat of a nuclear war, but by simply outworking the West, until our own supply chains became entirely dependent on them. To successfully run and control this, China now operates the most advanced digital surveillance grid on Earth. Hundreds of millions of cameras powered by live facial recognition. Let me give you a scenario that actually happens right now. Imagine you wake up on a Friday morning, pack your bags, and head to the local train station to visit your parents for the weekend. You scan your phone at the ticket gate. You get denied. You try to log into your bank app to see what's wrong. Your account is temporarily frozen. You try to book a cheap hotel room instead. App rejected. You didn't commit a violent crime. You didn't rob a store. But 3 days ago, you hopped onto a local messaging app and complained that the mayor of your city was corrupt for allowing a chemical plant to open near a school. Under China's evolving digital surveillance and social credit framework, that single comment flags you in a central algorithm. The state doesn't need to send secret police to drag you to a prison cell like the old Soviet Union used to do. That's too messy. Instead, They just quietly turn down the settings on your life. They restrict your internet speed, block you from buying plane tickets, and make you a ghost inside your own city until you comply. So here is the ultimate bargain I want you to think of. If your country offered you absolute economic wealth, good streets, and almost zero inflation in exchange for your voting rights, your public voice, and your right to ever say no to the people running your life, would you take the trade? Comment yes or no right below this video and tell me the exact reason why. I genuinely want to see how many people would trade their voice for security. Now, look across the ocean at the United States and the Western world. Our infrastructure looks like it's rotting from the inside out because, quite frankly, it is. Look at the California high-speed rail project. It was approved by voters nearly 2 decades ago to connect Los Angeles and San Francisco. Billions of dollars have been spent. Thousands of pages of environmental lawsuits have been filed. And politicians have spent years using it as a weapon to destroy each other's careers. Result? Not a single passenger has taken a ride. That's why democracy looks incredibly weak, slow, and incompetent on the global stage right now. But here is what everyone needs to understand, that this agonizing slowness is actually democracy's hidden superpower. When the government want to build a train line, they have to ask for permission. They have to listen to the farmer whose land is being taken. They have to listen to the environmentalist protecting the local water supply. They have to risk being voted out of office if they abuse their power. Our public arguments and screaming matches aren't a design flaw. They are like a safety valve. Safety of every individual if their rights are taken. And that brings us to the ultimate realization, the exact reason why we should pay attention to this topic. The Chinese model is incredibly attractive because economic development can be easily handed to you by an efficient dictator. A smart city can be built for you by a computer program, but individual freedom cannot be handed down by a state. It must be actively guaranteed to the people, because it is the only emergency tool that allows you to fight back if the people running that state eventually stop being good. This brings us directly to the most uncomfortable question at the very core of our modern world. If an authority figure could absolutely guarantee you a stable career, a beautiful modern home, and a steadily rising income, but required you to permanently surrender your vote, your free press, and your right to ever protest, would you honestly make that trade? Maybe you will say no, but for hundreds of millions of people across developing regions of the world, it's an active choice. Local surveys across parts of Africa and Asia show an unprecedented rise in sympathy for what political scientists call a benevolent dictator, a strong man who simply ignores politics and gets the job done. Defenders of this model point to places like Singapore as absolute proof that it works. Decades of strict one-party rule that transformed a tiny island into one of the richest, safest hubs on Earth. But for every single Singapore success story, history gives us a tragic counterweight: a Venezuela, a North Korea, or a Zimbabwe. These are nations where the citizens made the exact same bargain, surrendering their freedom for promised stability. But the good part of the dictator never actually showed up. And because they gave away their tools of resistance, they had no mechanism left to remove them. Democracy seems morally superior because it is the only model on Earth that treats you like an actual independent human citizen with an inherent soul, not like a piece of data to be optimized by an authoritarian algorithm, and treat people like a raw natural resource to be managed by the state. What do you think? Are we too broken internally to compete with a system that moves at light speed? Let me know down in the comments, and smash that like button to push this out to the algorithm for others. Also, don't forget to subscribe the channel. You can click on video on the screen to watch other videos of our channel. See you next time.